So last week I posted this on Instagram, and it was a mix of a few things that I've done in the past, 3D integration specifically, and you guys seemed to like it and had a quite interesting reaction to it. And so today we're going to learn how to integrate 3D into your 2D footage and sort of replicate what I made on Instagram. And also this technique applies to a lot of other things, and you'll be able to create various things. And I know this is a really long tutorial. I think one of the longest that I've ever made, around 30 minutes, but trust me, this has so much packed in it, and I promise you're going to learn so many things here, and I can't wait for you guys to enjoy this. So let me know what you think, and let's just jump right in. Here we are in After Effects. I'm gonna import my footage, and yes, I've shot it vertically, so I'm gonna just rotate it back to its position. And yeah, the first and the last few bits is a little wonky in terms of camera, and that's gonna be a problem when we track it. So I'm just gonna crop them out. I'm gonna find a suitable point even at the end where we can chop it off and get a good quality cut. Around 15 seconds seems like a good number, so that's what we're gonna do, just chop it off at that point. And yes, so what I've noticed in this shot is there's a lot of highlight, the screen's kind of reflecting the window towards the left, and that's causing a bit of fade of the color there. So what we're gonna do is take a lumetri just so we can clear all of it and kind of bring all these levels to us to a place where we can work with. It's clearly not the final product, and we're just going to use this for the data that the footage has. Alright, now that we have this, our next step is to sort of mask out only the phone so that we track only that space. And what we're basically doing is we're not tracking the scene from my perspective of the eye, rather we are creating a camera that is sort of locked on to the phone. So we'll have to mask out any other distraction and only use the track points that the screen has, these black dots, to kind of create a 3D data. The masking doesn't really have to be clean, it's called a garbage matte, and we're doing this very roughly just so that we have enough of the phone. So I'm just gonna fast forward because I'm telling you guys, you do not want to see the pain I'm in. Alright, so now we have some sort of a rough mask that I've applied throughout the video. So as of now we only have the phone and we have a black solid underneath it. So what we're gonna do is pre-compose this, create a pre-composition called track. So now this will act as a footage to track data from. Now typically what you could do is apply a 3D camera tracker to this, but what I've noticed in my experience is that it doesn't really go according to plan. I mean, I knew this was gonna happen, but yeah. So I've figured out a workaround, and that is basically to kind of export this footage that we have now and then re-import it and track that one, so that we can then use the data from it and we don't really have to use the footage. But so what we're gonna do is sort of export an intermediate file that is a ProRes 422. You can keep the settings as it is, and this just gonna export it. So I'm just gonna fast forward this as well. Alright, so we're just gonna drag the footage back into our scene, and we're gonna do the same thing, that is use a 3D camera tracker and track out the scene. So once we have that, I'm pretty sure we'll have a solid track which is quite precise. And first things first, I'm just gonna select all of it and create a solid and a camera. That way we have our scene set up. All the hard work is sort of done. And what we can do is we can get back our original footage, so we have something to work with. Right now we just have something black and green, and that's not gonna do. I'm pretty confident we've gotten a good track, but just to prove it to you guys, I'm gonna put like a text layer and kind of make it 3D. So we'll, okay, never mind. Alright, so now we'll know what we're working with and we'll see it in real time. So usually such layers take very less resource. So now we know that it's acting the way it should. So we're all set and we can all start the fun stuff, the stuff that you've been waiting for. I'm going to create a new solid and let's call it landscape. And once we've done that, we're going to add a plugin called Element 3D. So it's pretty popular, you must have heard of it. If not, it is a must for your After Effects work. And once we add this, it's going to take a while to load. We're going to click on the scene setup. So this is where you import your 3D stuff and you make all your 3D work happen. So I've already made one and I have a landscape that I've used for my earlier work. But being the good guy that I am and it's the holiday season and stuff, I'm giving it to you guys so you can follow along. So in fact, I'm giving all of the assets that I'll be using today and it's down in the description. You'll find all the required textures in the folder, but let's start with a bump or a normal texture. So basically that is what adds undulation and it determines the lighting and shadow for your work. So make sure you enable the convert bump over here so that it's actually translated into your model, and that is an important step and one of the key textures that you need to put. So diffuse and reflectivity and all of this can be played around with to achieve different effects. So for example, I've just taken a height map and plugged it into the occlusion. So now you know there's like this really weird effect that we're getting. So it can be manipulated in different ways. Inside we have a few options of gamma, contrast, brightness, and it's all up to your experimentation and what your purpose with this particular model is. Yeah, you can play around with the tools and you can explore the different aspects of this, and once you have something that you're satisfied, we can go ahead and click on the OK button and that will drop the model that we just worked on into the scene. So now what we're gonna do is we need it aligned to the phone screen. So what we're gonna open up Element 3D. So we're gonna open up the group and particle replicator, and now we're gonna get the X, Y and Z position. So a good way to manipulate all of these is by creating a group null. So what it does is it basically creates a null layer where you can manipulate it just like how we do for other layers of After Effects, and it will actually change the model itself. So you don't really have to go into the menu of Element 3D to do all your tweaking. You can just apply it to your null layer. If you notice that your model seems to be disappearing, it's because there's a option that you need to check, which is draw back faces. So whenever you click on a material, make sure you enable draw back faces so that it renders out both sides of your 3D model. So now we have our model ready, but I think it's flipped, so we're just going to play around with the orientation of it and the scale to just get it right and get it to the way we want it to look. Alright, in a typical scene which is well lit and there's a green screen, you can directly go ahead and apply a key light effect onto your footage and select the green color using the eyedropper tool, and we'll sort of get a clean result more or less, but we have to sort of tweak a few settings. and that would be under screen mat. Elements like clip black, clip white, screen despot black and white, softness, all of these are things that you can tweak and get a perfect key. But in this particular shot, like I told you earlier, we have our window on the left creating a glare on the screen of the phone, which is why we are losing out color over here. So we're just gonna do our same trick of using a lumetri and trying to figure out a suitable color tone over here, that is underexpose the highlights, get back the green color, so that we have a footage to work with. Alright, once you do this, and I'm just gonna place the lumetri above key light, we'll have a pretty solid matte. So the next few steps is a bit important, so I'm gonna try explaining it as easy as I can. So what we're gonna do with the footage that we've just color corrected and we've done all this stuff, only so that we get a clear black and white information of where the opacity levels needs to be 0 and where it needs to be 100. So we're gonna just duplicate the file, clean out everything so that we have the footage the way it is, right? And we're gonna use the screen mat and provide information to it. We're gonna do that by using a Luma mat, and a Luma mat is an option that you select by pressing the toggle mode and then select Luma mat. So that way now we have the information of blacks and whites being portrayed onto our footage. So we've completely cleared out our screen. And we'll just bring down the landscape to get behind the phone and we don't have these weird edges over it. Awesome, I think this looks pretty cool. It's doing what it's supposed to. Alright, so the next step is, typically this works and we've just figured out a new way to key, but sometimes there's a lot of leak, in the sense the green spills out, and After Effects has a really good combination of preset for keying to exactly combat this, and you can just search it. It's a combination of key light, key cleaner and an advanced spill suppressor. So what it basically does is, it's the same process. It's like you pick out your colors and refine it, but the extra few additions of the effects lets you actually clean out the remaining colors from it, so the remaining green edges that might otherwise be visible. So this is another good alternative for you guys to use. Alright, so if you're smart, you're gonna notice that there's a bit of color in the bottom footage, which is the original footage, and the reflection of the screen has been cast onto my fingers. And an easy way to get rid of this, there are multiple ways you can get rid of the green. So what I'm gonna do is just go to the lumetri and just pull down the saturation of the color green, just like that, and it's already gone. You can also change the hue towards something more of a skin tone, right? So you can pull it upwards until it reaches a color that sort of matches the skin. So this is just one way to do it. You might have a lot of different cases where you might have to try using different strategies, but this is easy and it gets the job done, so cool. And yeah, about the smartness earlier, I'm sorry, I was just kidding. I know you guys aren't smart at all. Alright, our next step is going to be to recreate the lighting conditions, right? So I'm just going to create a light, a point light maybe, and if you notice, I've put a sort of a bluish tinge to it, and now that is because I can notice there's a bit of blueness near my fingers and the palm. So I'm trying to get as close to it as I can, and I'm just gonna find like a right place to achieve the right shadows. So something like this seems to be a good light. And obviously the light is again going to move along with the phone, it's not really stationary. So it's just for that first few frames where people are going to actually notice it, So we're trying to get the immersion happening, and then it's just going to follow along the camera. So you can do this or you don't have to. Alright, now the next step is going to be the sun. So we're going to sort of emulate a sun that is right next to the mountain. And for that I'm just going to duplicate the light and try to find a suitable place. But now if you notice, I'm not really able to find the right point for it. So the good part is we have our footage with the track data. All you have to do is open up the 3D camera tracker, tap on it, and then you'll find a few points. Now you can just right click, create a null. The moment you do that, you have a lot of information in that null which you can just copy and paste into your light. So now I've just copied the positions. I'm going to rename it sun, and I'm just going to go open up the position of it and paste it, so we have it right over there. And if you notice, it's just going to follow the camera, and this is exactly what we need. Perfect. I'm going to slightly change the position of it and sort of kind of recreate a sunset kind of scene, and I'm just going to grab it and take it a little upwards. I think that should do. Cool. Now the way we're going to recreate the sun is by creating a lens flare, and I'm going to use optical flares by Video Copilot on a new solid, and this is a brilliant tool. I've been using it for as long as I can remember. So here we're going to switch on the track lights because you already have lights in the scene, and we have the letter, right? So we can actually rename our sun, and I didn't think through. I'm going to rename it light now. Yeah, and we'll have a crazy sun, so we can put the blend mode into reveal on transparent, and now we have a perfect sun that is causing realistic flares. Ta-da! Alright, cool. Opening up the options will give you a bunch of presets which you can browse through, and I found that there's a sun preset that I really dig, and it's kind of looks crazy in the scene. I'm going to use this one. Alright, so the next step on the list is to make particles. So we're gonna emulate snow. We're gonna try to recreate this environment of a snowy mountain, right? So we're gonna create a new solid, and we're gonna apply a plugin called Particular. So I'm just gonna rename this particles, and effects console, Particular. And this is another amazing plugin that you guys need to have it. And yeah, I'm just gonna open up Designer. It's gonna take a bit, and there are tons of presets here as well. We're not really going to go in depth and recreate from scratch, but we're just gonna take from the presets, and I'm pretty sure there is I think quite a few snow presets to pick from, and I've just taken one right now. And yeah, I'm just gonna try to move the layers so that I know the particle has been generated. Usually when you use a particle system, it starts producing particles from 0 onwards. So we're gonna take the position data from our track and we're gonna place it into the position of the particle system so that we know the system is right near the phone. I think the particles here are way too small, so I'm just going to increase the size of every particle and increase the emitter as well. Sure, why not? There we go. I'm probably gonna try 5. Yeah, 5 seems to be a good number. Pardon my OCD, I'm just gonna rename all of these again. Otherwise, I think I'm gonna get confused. I have no idea what's gonna happen to you guys. And also, yeah, I've forgotten, you guys have to enable motion blur to all of your assets. So basically the landscape, the snow, the sun, and that's just gonna add a whole level of beauty to it. The orientation is all wrong, so I'm just gonna play with the emitters, rotation values, and match it to the scale of the phone. Also, if you notice, the mountain seems to be higher than the phone in terms of its horizon, so we do not want to overcomplicate it by masking out the peak of it. So what I'm going to do is just go to the 3D system and just pull down the mountain a bit so that the whole 3D environment is below the surface of the screen, if you know what I mean. I think you'll know once there we go. Yeah, I'm just gonna play with the orientation just to make sure we have it properly aligned to the surface of the screen. That alright, that should do, I guess. Cool. So as you can see, there's a black spot which is the background and it doesn't really have anything. So what we're going to do is add 4 planes to sort of close this whole mountain, right? So I'm going to create a plane, I'm going to rotate it, and yeah, if you notice there, you see the drop back face needs to be enabled to this material as well. So I'm just going to enable, yeah. Alright, show back face, and yeah, I'm gonna just resize it. I think this should do. Yeah, another thing is I'm going to make it more of a glossy material, so I want an end product to be sort of reflecting the mountain, and one way to do this is we have to go to the reflect mode and mirror surface. So now it reflects everything that is on the scene, and this software is brilliant, dude. Right, I'm gonna play with the glossiness and the reflecting values just to try getting something that I like. So here I'm putting a roughness map, reflectance, whatever it's called here. It's a roughness map basically, so I have this sort of this earthy texture. Now what we've noticed is, so the white and black value determines how rough the surface is gonna be, and we get an interesting effect. Oh wait, it's on top, my bad. So we are going to replicate this on all the 4 sides. So I'm just going to fast forward this bit so we don't have to waste our time, your time, and my time. And yeah, and there we go. This seems really good and I'm happy with how this is turning out. So I've quickly made a ramp preview, and so we can see what our entire rendered timeline looks like. If you notice, there's the track points that's still remaining on the screen, and this is our next step. We are going to clean it off, and this is pretty simple. You can just create a mask in the screen and go forward in your timeline and do a rough tracking of it, like, add keyframes however it's moving. And we put the mask option, so hold down M on your keyboard and that opens up the mask, and you can select the subtract layer to it, and now we don't have it anymore. And our next step is going to be to add a depth of field. So I'm gonna enable it in the camera, and we're just gonna quickly check if our focus point is right or wrong. So all you have to do is apply keyframes and then find the right point in space where your focus is spot on. And I'm just gonna forward this bit as well. Cool. Alright, so now let's get into the whole hologram part of it, text, overlays of text and stuff. I'm just gonna open up the track solver, duplicate it. Now we're just gonna use this as a reference, right, as a frame, as a block. And yeah, you need to make sure that you've switched off accept lights and accept shadows, etc., so that it's not influenced by our lights in the scene. And what I'm gonna do is try to position it to where I need, and for now I want it on the top right of my phone, so I'm just gonna find the right position. So now once you have that set, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna right click and pre-compose. and we can just call it text. I think we're gonna leave all attributes outside, and what we'll have now when we double click is just a empty space. So now we don't need that green color space, but instead we are going to add a few texts, and I'm not really going to show this bit. I'm going to skip through, and I have a title animation tutorial that you can check out to make some interesting titles. But what I am going to show you is an interesting way to make this RGB leak in LED screens, or LCD I think. And what we're going to do is pre-compose all of our text, and we're going to duplicate it thrice. Yeah, so we need 3 instances of it. And what we're going to firstly add is a grid effect. Basically this is what is going to create a pixel sort of an effect onto your text, and we're going to go width slider and just keep moving it across until you find what works. But I usually keep it around this range so that we have very smaller pixels. Some 25 should do, I guess. And yeah, we're gonna tweak the feather and the border, so maybe the border is gonna stay at 3, 4. Play with the settings here and see what works. I also add usually a 1 or 2 of feather so that it's not really too sharp. And the blending mode, for this case we're gonna use a screen. Alright, so I'm just gonna copy this and paste it to the rest of the comp. And now we are going to use an effect called set channels. Basically we are restricting the channels in RGB, and that's why we have 3 of them. So we're gonna have separate channels for each of these, and basically we are actually squeezing out all of the colors and putting them back in. So each of the layers will have red, green and blue, and the rest of them are switched off. Once you have that, once you've separated the red, green and blue channels, we're gonna screen all of them. So we're gonna put the blend mode screen, and voila, we have something crazy. I mean, it looks the same, but the moment you start moving the positions of these layers is when you see the magic. And we've created that leak, right? RGB leak, and there we go. You can notice it. You can actually intensify it by pushing the position farther away, but this will do. For my preference, I'm just gonna turn the blend mode into screen because I'm not really a fan of it popping too much, and it's just subtle, right? So I'm just gonna screen all of this into the frame. Now that we've done all of this, our next step, before we move on to the next step, I just want to show you guys. So this is a plugin called Optical Glow by, again, Red Giant, and basically this is just another glow tool, right, to achieve glow. And I've put this on top as an adjustment layer so that I emulate this glow out of the screen. And I haven't really focused on this in this tutorial because it's not really of the concern, but it is just a filter that I've applied, and that is why you can see this sort of a faded misty effect to it. Just too much information for no particular reason. Alright, next on the list is this interesting thing. I'm not sure if you've noticed, but if at times you look at things through a glass, you notice this double layer that it's sort of this refraction feel, and I don't really know how to explain it, but we're gonna try and achieve it. And to do this, I'm simply just gonna duplicate the layer, drag it down, and maybe put a fill and completely whiten it. And then obviously I am going to remove the opacity, maybe 15% should do. And basically it's just that subtle reflection kind of quality that we're adding. And trust me guys, all of these little things add up to sort of form this beautiful overall imagery. The placement of it so that it doesn't look too fake, and it sort of acts like a reflection underneath the layer. I'm just going to move it slightly so that I can achieve it. Another cool thing, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this snow layer, and now we have another set of particles, right? I'm just gonna increase the overall scale of this, so the emitter size is gonna be massive all across. So now what this is gonna create is a few particles in the air, and as the phone moves around, these particles move along with it, but their distances are too great, so they form this really crazy effect, and that looks so cool. And this is what we're looking for, these weird crazy stuff. Alright, I'm gonna rename this as environment, just so that I'm a little more clear on what I'm working with. In the similar fashion like our text effect, I've created another one, which is the song that I'm going to be using in this particular video, right? And that's sort of like this Spotify's playhead, and I thought it's an interesting thing, and it's the same process. And this is pretty much about it, and with a few extra things and something of your own and a bit of color grading, you're gonna achieve something like this. Alright, that was a really long tutorial, and I hope you guys stayed through and learned something new today. And I'm so glad that I could make this and help you guys out. A lot of you have been asking how to integrate stuff, because I know you guys are into it, and I hope this helped. And if it did, drop in a like, say something on the comments. You can ask a question or request a tutorial, and I'll make it happen. And if you're new here, consider subscribing. If not, enjoy. You can share the video to your friends, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Until next time, a small part of you.